Some stocks are so strong, you just have to marvel at the way they've been running. That's how I feel about Lam Research, LRCX, the semiconductor capital equipment maker that's given us a terrific 37% gain since last spoke to the CEO past April. Historically, the semiconductor capital equipment business has been extremely cyclical, boom bust. But at the moment, chip makers transitioning to a new generation of smaller semiconductors found in virtually every electronic device, including all those iPhones, which means they need to upgrade to the next generation of machinery constantly, and that's where Lam comes in. Ever since the company acquired Novellus, another Umongo fave of ours, back in 2012, it's moved beyond its core plasma etching business, where it has more than a 50% market share, into thin film deposition platforms, photoresist strip systems, and single wafer wet/plasma cleaning products. Lam reported near the end of April and end of October, it was just a thing of beauty. I was astounded. Company reported a 2-cent earnings beat off a 94-cent basis. Inline revenues rose 13.5% year over year. And management made some very constructive comments about 2015. So can it keep roaring? Let's check in with Martin Anstis, the president and CEO of Lam Research. Mr. Anstis, welcome back to Mad Money.
Thank you, Jim. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. Now, I've got to tell you, you did something that no one else has done. You actually say that you've got good visibility right through the calendar year 2017. How is that possible?
Well, we have a perspective in terms of technology transitions from the industry. Of course, right. Very hard to predict the global economy and what that means in terms of consumer products demand. But what is very tangible for us to identify is the technology inflections of the industry, which is the core of how the capital equipment industry supports devices and semiconductor and ultimately consumer products.
But who's smart enough to know how to make those small form factors now for 2017? Who knows that much?
Well, I don't know that we're that different to anybody else in the industry. I think the development cycles that are necessary for us to deliver equipment require, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5-year cycles of investment before we're in high volume manufacturing. So we don't have the crystal ball, but we have an ability to dialogue with customers in fundamental research and concept and feasibility evaluations of equipment and help work through incredibly complex transitions for them in the long term.
Now, if they didn't spend, what would happen?
If they didn't spend, ultimately, there are supply problems on integrated circuits because today's economy, today's semiconductor supply and demand balance is very tight. And so any signal of demand today is a signal of capital investment. A lot of discipline today.
Now, let's talk about that because I've been through I remember in the 90s when everyone told me there'd be a DRAM shortage forever. And then someone picked up the phone and called your predecessor and they started making more. How can we, if you're in Micron right now, if you're in Intel, everything's really tight.
Yep.
Why? They've never been disciplined before. Martin, I've been there for years, and one of them always blinks.
Yep. And maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't happen.
Okay.
My thesis is one of the byproducts of consolidation in the semiconductor industry and also in our equipment industry is there are cycles of discipline, there are cycle time capabilities today that allow decisions to add capacity much more timely than ever before. So the need to anticipate is less. I think there is much less cyclicality, much more discipline.
See, this is something no one expected, which is why, Novellus, Rick, I didn't trust the cycle, but it wasn't a cycle, it was secular growth.
Yes.
That's the way to look at it, right?
Yeah, I think that's the way to look at it. I think cyclicality is down. Of course, macroeconomic influences will always be there, but the traditional cycle defined by an imbalance of supply and demand for silicon, I think is in our past.
It's amazing. I can't believe it's happened in my lifetime. I always thought it would be boom or bust. Now, one thing that did disturb me, but maybe I'm incorrect in doing it, was that the top 3 customers represent for us maybe 2/3 of our systems shipments. Typically, in a lot of industries, I'd be afraid that you would have 3 customers that were so dominant. Why is that okay in Lam's case?
It's the reality of our industry. I think 65% of semiconductor equipment purchases are made by the top 3 semiconductor companies in the world, which doesn't mean that's the only focus, because there are still very important customers beyond that top 3. And there's an install base annuity that's a very important part of the economics of the company. So our focus is way beyond all 3. But the technology leadership that comes from the 3 to 5 is the reality of our industry.
That's
and
amazing.
Customer trust is our first and most important vision objective.
If that's the case, then would people trust Applied Materials with that merger? I have to believe that merger is upsetting people.
That's a conversation you should have with them. Of
Well,
course,
that's why I
more than
mentioned
me.
it, because I know that you're the foil for me to say that, frankly.
But generally speaking, we are an advocate for consolidation in the industry. We think it is a way of delivering value. But our perspective is on this deal, it is too big for the industry. It does have a consequence in terms of competition levels in the industry, and ultimately competition levels are a necessity for innovation. Yeah. And so our perspective is a little big, and we'll see how the regulatory review process plays out. But independent of that, the strategy of our company is very clear. We have a focus on deposition, etch, and clean. Execution is everything. We have put together 2 years' worth of outperformance in those products.
It's amazing.
And the technology inflections of the industry allow us to position, as we did in the last earnings call. We think that continues for some years.
You're just a great growth company that I see no cyclicality.
Exciting time for us.
Very exciting time. All right, that's Martin Anstice. He's the president and CEO of Lam Research. Guys, this used to be boom bust. Now it's just great secular growth, not cyclical. That's why it's working so well. Mad Money's back after the break.